Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Sunday morning in what I think is some really intriguing news for the Florida State fans coming out of the transfer portal as former Oklahoma running back Gavin Sawchuk committing to Florida State. Now, I want to note this right off the bat. This is how transfer portal recruitment should look for Florida State. Too many times over the last couple of weeks, I feel like they got the second visit, got the third visit, got the fourth visit for some of these top transfer portal targets. And guess what happens? Those guys don't even make it to Florida State. I think they identified Gavin Sawchuk as a top priority when he entered his name into the portal. They moved very quickly to get him on campus first, locked in the commitment. Like to me, that's how Florida State needs to operate in the transfer portal. Now, the more intriguing conversation here is, can Gavin Sawchuk be the running back one for Florida State in 2025? That's why they're bringing this kid in. And you look at Gavin Sawchuk during his time at Oklahoma, you've seen him play like a running back one, like a legitimate difference maker at the running back position. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster during his time at Oklahoma, but there have been flashes of, this kid could be one of the best running backs in the country. Very important conversation to have for Florida State going into 2025, where number one, we know Gus Malzahn is coming in, taking over this offense, looking to run the football. They bring in Thomas Castellanos. They bring in a massive, physically overwhelming offensive line. Like, this offensive line is a big physical unit. We know Gus Malzahn wants to run the football. He's extremely good at scheming up the run game. One of the big question marks we had for Florida State going into spring was, who's going to emerge as the difference maker in the running back room? Like, it was a deep room. You had names that you like. Roydell Williams and Cam Davis, Keziah Holmes, Jalen Lucas. The question was who's going to emerge? Because you look historically at Gus Malzahn. He wants to identify the running back one, and he wants to ride that running back. He did it with R.J. Harvey at UCF, but really throughout his career as a football coach running offenses, he wants to ride a guy. The question is, can Gavin Sawchuk be that dude for Florida State in 2025? I'm going to make a little bit of a hot take here. Florida State going into 2025, who are the two best running backs on the roster? I think it very well could be two names that weren't with this program in spring practice. Gavin Sawchuk coming from Oklahoma and Usman Kramoa coming in as a freshman coming in the summer. It's not a shot at Roydell Williams. It's not a shot at Cam Davis. I think Jalen Lucas is going to get used, but never was going to be that featured running back. I just look at it and say, I think these two are probably the most talented running backs and most complete running backs on this roster. Now, can you get that out of a guy like Gavin Sawchuk? I'm excited to get into Gavin Sawchuk because there's a lot to like about this kid. Before we get into it, as always, the Florida State fans, y'all let it fly in the comment section. Look, I got the updated depth chart here. Certainly a hot take. Two new names coming into the summer, maybe taking over this running back room. Would love to hear how you guys are feeling in the comment section. Like, who's your prediction to be the bell cow featured back in this Gus Malzahn offense in 2025? Let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I want to go back to Gavin Sawchuk in 2023. Towards the end of 2023, and we've talked about this, Gavin Sawchuk was dominant. He had 5 straight games of over 100 yards to close out the 2023 season as a true freshman. Played Florida State in that bowl game, ran for over 100 yards as a true freshman. So Mike Norvell has seen the potential, has seen what Gavin Sawchuk can do firsthand. Now, you go back to 2023, 111 carries, 8.5 yards per carry against Oklahoma State, 135 yards, 6.1 yards per carry against West Virginia, $7, 7.6 yards per carry against BYU, $30 against TCU, $135 against Arizona. The back half of that 2023 season for Gavin Sawchuk was elite. Then you go into 2024, and that Oklahoma offense in general was a disaster. The Oklahoma offensive line was just as bad as Florida State's was in the 2024 year. So that kind of tells you how bad Oklahoma's offensive line was in the SEC. It was a down year for Gavin in 2024, battled some injuries. I'm not ready to sell my stock on this kid because I've seen it firsthand that this kid can be a difference maker. I think you have the offensive line in place with a big physical unit. I think you have the offensive coordinator in place with Gus Malzahn. Now you needed a running back that can be the bell cow. And I think, look, I don't think there were a ton of running backs that had the potential to be a running back one at a high level. I thought Gavin Sawchuk was one of them. Look, he's ranked as the 30th running back in the transfer portal. I think that is some recency bias. Bad year in 2024. If this kid were to come out 12 months ago after the 2023 year, he would have been considered one of the best running backs in the portal. And I think that Gavin Sawchuk is still there. The other conversation around this is, Florida State's going to run the football a lot. When you're running the football a lot, you have to figure out ways to be explosive. Now, Jalen Lucas is one of those guys that I think can provide the explosiveness as a ball carrier. Gavin Sawchuk is that kind of guy too, right? He's 5'11", 205, can run between the tackles, can run behind his pads. He's also a guy that 10'6" in the 100-meter dash coming out of high school, legitimate home run hitting ability in terms of the long speed. And you've seen that translate to the football field as well. Can Gavin Sawchuk be one of those running backs that can provide the explosiveness to this Florida State offense in 2025? I think there's an opportunity for that to take place. You look at the other running backs in this room, guys like Roydell Williams and guys like Cam Davis, they're, put together running backs that are a little bit more physically imposing, but I don't know how explosive they are at the second level. Gavin Sawchuk, he's that guy. I can't wait to hear what you hear from this kid coming. I don't think Florida State brought him in to be a rotational piece. I think they brought him in to potentially really win that running back one spot. And I think he has the potential to do that. The other name we got to talk about, Gavin Blackwell committing from North Carolina. This is a little bit more of a rotational experienced wide receiver. And look, you go to Florida State's wide receiver room, and I kind of like it, right? Deuce Robinson and Squirrel White are your top two pass catchers. I think you have a lot of young pass catchers that could emerge, whether it's Luane McCoy, Elijah Moore, Javon Boggs, Tayshawn Gelsey. You think you add Gavin Blackwell as, hey, fifth-year senior, been around the block, probably not going to be super involved in this offense, but a nice depth piece addition since Florida State kind of lost some wide receivers in their depth through the spring transfer portal. I really like the Gavin Sawchuk addition. I think it's much needed. There are certain offenses that they don't need that true dynamic running back one. And the Gus Malzahn offense, you look historically, whether it's time at Auburn, whether it's time at UCF, he wants that guy. And I think for Florida State coming out of spring practice, they probably were looking for one of those guys to emerge. I'm guessing maybe a name didn't emerge. And so, hey, let's go make it happen in the portal. And they were patient. Because they're outside of that North Dakota State kid, Shamar Brown, I didn't think there were difference-maker running backs in the portal. Gavin Sawchuk was a late addition. Florida State identified him as a guy that has the potential to be the running back one. They quickly made this thing happen. We're the first team to reach out to him. We're the first team to get him on campus. Didn't go anywhere else. That's how it needs to look in the transfer portal for your priority targets. I think a good get for Gus Malzahn, good get for Mike Norvell, big get for this Florida State offense. Look, we're going to run the football. We need difference makers with the football in their hands. I think Gavin Sawchuk can be that guy. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. I think that'll do it for Florida State in the portal. We'll see. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.